Guys, it is finally here. We have The Abyss on 4K in Dolby Atmos. This is awesome. I am so excited for this. And now you're underwater and you just hear the clanging. Oh, scared the dog. I actually saw The Abyss for the first time just a few years ago. And obviously it was on DVD because that was the best we had at the time. And so now seeing it on 4K in my home theater, it was a totally different experience. And I am so glad that we finally have this opportunity to see this film as it now is. Now, a lot has been said about the picture quality of this movie and the other James Cameron releases. And I can tell you, it looks great. It's not surprising that James Cameron would not release a film that looked bad. It looks awesome. It looks so good. And I don't know what else to say. I mean, I could go through and nitpick every single frame, but at the end of the day, it's here and it looks amazing, and now we can enjoy it. So enjoy it. If you like this movie, get it. You'll love it. Now, for the sound. The sound is, I'm just going to sum it up and say I was so happy with the sound. It's in Dolby Atmos, obviously, and I was hopeful that this film would deliver with the soundtrack. And when I say soundtrack, I mean all of, not just the music, but all of the effects, everything. And it definitely did deliver. So this is the chase scene where they're in one vehicle or two vehicles, and the one guy is coming after him, and they're trying to escape away from him. And it sounds really good, like those crashing as the vehicles crash into each other. You hear it coming through the heights. And then as they grind along the ground, you hear it in the front, and it'll pan across and then overhead. So it just shot overhead. Yeah, and when it's a POV shot inside the vehicle, you hear the crashing as the vehicles run into each other. You hear them crashing into each other overhead and to the side. Oh yeah, and the vehicle just passed overhead, and the sound just went like right overhead. This really is remarkable. This film is decades old, and like I say, there's movies that are made today that don't sound this good. It really is phenomenal. I mean, it makes sense. It's James Cameron, so it makes sense it would be good. What's great about this film is that it provides an opportunity to really showcase what Atmos and surround sound is capable of, because it's underwater. And so there are a lot of sounds that you wouldn't normally get when you're just walking around above ground. For instance, you have bubbles and waves and just water and creaking of the ship and the submarine. Not ship, I guess they're on kind of like a underwater drilling rig or some sort of vehicle. And they do that very well. In the opening scene, you're in a submarine, and it crashes into like a cliff or some sort of rock formation, and inside the submarine you hear the water rushing in, you hear the submarine groaning and creaking, and it's all around you, and you really feel like you're in the submarine. And it's awesome. Now, I will say on this film, there aren't really any scenes that I would call demo material. So, obviously with Ready Player One, that's a well-known scene with the race scene. There's nothing like that in here where you say, oh, I need to, your friends come over and you say, oh, I need to play this scene for you from The Abyss. It doesn't really have anything like that, but instead it just has constant sounds throughout the film that add multiple layers to the immersive experience of watching this story play out. And it does it very, very well. I'm so happy with how it turned out. So let's talk some specifics, things that stood out to me that I noticed as I was watching the film. I already mentioned the creaking and groaning of the ship. There's also early on in the film an instance where some helicopters are landing on a ship, and obviously helicopters overhead. Great use of that. It was awesome. The wind and rain, any instances where that happened, whether it be at the beginning with wind or later on when the hurricane hits, lots of wind and rain through the surrounds and the overheads. Really, really just surrounds you in the 360-degree sound. It was great. So this is the scene where the hurricane is coming in and they start breaking loose of the ship, and you just hear the waves crashing down all around. And now you're underwater and you just hear the clanging. Oh, scared the dog. And so now the vehicle that they're in is breaking loose, and it's sliding forward, and you hear the music coming in through the surrounds and kind of faint overhead rumbling. Oh, and now the crane is breaking up, and you hear it crashing down, coming in from overhead. And then water crashing in. Yeah. That's a really tense scene, and having all of the sound effects coming through from every direction really adds to it. So as they're underwater, they have these vehicles that they're kind of navigating the ocean with, kind of underwater sea vehicles, and as they are, moving around, they make good use of the surround sounds and bass. There wasn't a ton of bass in this film, but the little bit that they did have, they used it to good effect. And with the vehicle as it's like passing overhead, it sounded great, and you really felt like there was just this massive vehicle just passing right over you. As it was with Aliens, I felt like the soundtrack, the musical score, scored by Alan Silvestri, was done well. The music, there wasn't as much music in this one as there was in Aliens, but when it did come through in the surrounds, and it was used well. It wasn't an overpowering in your face soundtrack, but it was there, and it was kind of in the background, and I felt like it was balanced well. Like it wasn't too much and it wasn't too little. I felt like they struck a good balance with the soundtrack, as far as like the volume as well as the placement. So good marks on the soundtrack. One instance that really stood out to me with the Atmos height speakers and just the full experience was when it was a POV shot from inside the helmet. So somebody was suited up so that they could go out in the water, and they put on their helmet, and the camera goes inside the helmet, and you're just surrounded by this heavy breathing. And you really felt like you were inside the helmet looking out, and it felt very claustrophobic. You're hearing the breath and seeing the glass, and it was an immersive experience. What's interesting to me is, again, same with Aliens. I mean, this is an older film. This is made decades ago, and yet they have taken the score, the soundtrack, all of the effects, the music, everything, and they have translated it into a modern format, Dolby Atmos, and it sounds amazing. It really does. I watch movies that are produced today that don't sound as good as this movie. It's true. I'm just blown away at what they were able to accomplish and how good it sounds today. If I obviously missed out on seeing this in the theater because I was too young when it came out, but now we all have the opportunity to see this film probably better than when it was in the theater, because we can see it in a home theater with better sound than they had 30 years ago, and so it's awesome. It's so cool. And then you hear the choir just kind of faintly singing all around you. Excellent. One of the interesting artistic audio choices was to incorporate a choir singing, and it usually spoilers if you haven't seen the film, when the aliens are approaching, or kind of entering the story, this choir just sings very lightly, and it's kind of an airy voice choir. It's kind of hard to describe, but it comes through the heights and the surrounds, and it just kind of envelops you in this kind of otherworldly type atmosphere from this choir. And it came through really well in my theater, and I don't know that would necessarily even be audible, um if you just are using your TV speakers or even a sound bar. I don't know. I'd have to test it. It would be interesting to watch this with just regular, like a sound bar, and see how much of the audio is missing because you just don't have the channels to project those sounds. But I thought that choir was a nice touch, and it added to it, and it was great. This movie really is a fantastic example of what Atmos and immersive sound can be. And like I said, it's not really explosions, though there are some explosions. It's not like massive, major demo material, but it's just throughout the entire film. It's just immersive sound through the entire film, and it adds to the film and makes it that much more enjoyable, and it really pulls you into the movie, and you feel like you're there, and you feel the intensity and the stress and the suspense, and it all adds up together and comes together and just creates an enjoyable experience. So if you have seen this movie, you got to see it, because this is the best it's ever been, and it's the best it ever will be, most likely. And now you have the opportunity to see it. So check it out. And thanks for watching.